Today's guest is Sneha Kumari. She's a lean Six Sigma supply chain thought leader. So, Sneha, thank you for coming on the show.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I am so glad. Shout out to the super connector, Jesse, for connecting me and just being awesome all the time. But I'm so excited to be on your list and today be chatting with you and sharing a little bit about my journey.
Sure, absolutely. And you have a area supply chain which I've always had the biggest respect for, especially, and I think the rest of the world has a lot more respect for going through some of the chaos over the last couple of years.
Oh yes, yes, yes. Supply chain became a thing, like a term. I can't tell you. We usually like us, the supply chainers, we laugh a lot about this, which is earlier when my family will talk about. So what do you do? And I'm like in supply chain. Okay, what's that about? And maybe even if someone knew about it, they'll be like, oh, okay, logistics. But that's about it. But right after pandemic, there's just been a lot of focus, of course, because there was pain and pain gave supply chain visibility. And now even our government officials are talking about supply chain, which makes me feel super proud to be doing this for more than a decade now, and proud to be associated with all the innovations to come in this field altogether.
Yeah. And within the supply chain side, I think you have a passion area within the supply chain side.
Yes, absolutely. And we'll talk more as we keep talking more about it. But just to share a little bit with the listeners about my journey, supply chain is a huge umbrella. And trust me, it's not just logistics. It literally touches every single aspect of a product life cycle that you probably like. If you are sitting somewhere and listening to this, if you're driving, just look around you. Whatever you have around you has a supply chain behind it. Trust me. So it starts with procurement, like literally getting the raw materials in and to make something new, turn something to something brand new. That supply chain to actually managing all the demand and supply, and how we had baby food out for some time and we were out of toilet papers. Yes, that's demand planning. So that supply chain, warehousing, like where do you stock your products, like the Amazon warehouses from where it's, or well, Walmart warehouses where it's released to your houses. So that supply chain, logistics, a supply chain, reverse logistics, a supply chain. When you return your items, that's reverse logistics. So literally, like think about it, from the birth of a small raw material to actually making, transforming it into a totally different product. Everything, supply chain touches everything. And I am blessed to have worked in every single umbrella that I just spoke to you about. So, which gives me an idea of, like, put things in perspective, the challenges, the and the wins of all of these teams working together. So, the point is, while I was working all of it, in all of these different things and firefighting and getting things out to a customer, something that really struck to me about 5 years back was how could all of this be put to something that's creating a positive impact and actually also a fulfillment for me personally. And that's where my journey towards understanding the whole concept of circular economy started. Back then, circular supply chains, no one had an idea. And I have been volunteering for these organizations, which is Circular Supply Chain Network, where we bring in all the leaders in the different areas talking about the power of supply chains in making a circular economy happen. Now, let me just stop a little bit. For our listeners, if they don't understand what circular supply chains or circular economy is, it's pretty much a setup. It's different than sustainability. Let me share a little bit. Usually, people tend to club both of them in the same umbrella. My POV is that isn't necessarily true. Sustainability is big, it's huge. We're talking about 17 sustainability development goals. It's not just about a product. Um, s- Circular economy is pretty much how, especially circular supply chains, is about. If you have heard of the word lean, we talk about minimizing waste in your process, right? Circular supply chains talk about monetizing waste. That's how simply I could explain it to you, which is a state where the waste of your supply chains become value. And that's how I became my passion comes from, because everything that I'm doing in supply chain can actually be brought back to the supply chain and not end up in landfills and create a negative
Mm,
impact and increase our pull on the planet.
yeah.
And so that's where the journey started. We have come a long way. Tons of articles, podcasts, speaking, blogging has happened since then. And if you ever would like to nerd on this topic, I'm always available. Ping me. This is something that I absolutely passionately love.
Yeah. So monetizing, not minimizing, but monetizing. What are the
Wanted
examples?
Let me give you an example. So I'm gonna take something very hmm, I'll take multiple examples. Okay. Let's start with if you are a fruit manufacturing company, right? So say you are making fruit juices, right? It's a food company. When you have processed all of your food or fruit waste, you either are throwing it in landfills or doing something about it. When that waste actually becomes value for a textile manufacturer to turn them into some kind of apparels or handbags or shoes, that's circular supply chain, that's monetizing waste. Now literally there is a marketplace where that waste of this company actually became value, right? It became raw material for another company, simply put. Now let me give you something else, some other example. Like for example, Unilever has been doing this a lot. So there are some containers that are stranded or not used. Those containers can actually be either turned into modular houses or can actually be used as mobile warehouses, right? And now you are putting your production as at point of uses. So your logistics costs and all. So it's all about functioning in circles. And the smaller the circle is, the better you are, the lesser the pull on the planet is.
Smaller the circle.
Smaller the circle, meaning everything is localized. You are sharing. It's a shared economy. You're sharing your resources. You're sharing your raw materials. You're sharing energy. Your logistic costs go down. Now, suddenly, your dependency on forecasts goes down, right? Remember, I'm not sure if you might be aware that steel was a big problem. The prices were soaring for in a like couple years back, right? Because of the way our supply chains are set up. We have been offshoring for the longest time. Now, if imagine bringing all of them closer, right, and being able to function with lesser, like smaller, like quicker lead times, that helps your customer delivery time, so that improves. Plus, your reliance on forecast is immensely reduced because now you're not panicking for all the sine curve dips and bips that you're seeing in that model. So that's what I call a circle. Like your supply chain is a circle, and the smaller the circle, the better it is.
Mm. So how do you identify or figure out these type of opportunities? Do you just look for anywhere that there's any type of waste being produced and then you start brainstorming and asking questions?
That's a very, very, very amazing question. I have been personally been advocating of actually having a marketplace someday, where literally, like Amazon is a marketplace, right? We go there, there are sellers, there are buyers, and they're talking to each other. Um, Reaply is doing something similar, wherein assets, used assets, is actually you go there and then you are able to use it. So having that marketplace is important. It's important for me as a manufacturer because I might actually be getting paid for some of my waste, which probably I wasn't, like I was throwing in trash before. And it's important for me as a buyer because then I'm actually probably getting, you know, um, a subsidized like value, reduced value for raw materials that I could purchase. Of course, uh, it varies from industry to industry. Like talk about aerospace, automotive, where it's like mission critical, defense, like it's mission critical operations. Quality becomes a big factor, right? Specifications become a big factor, and we really need to think it through. But today, there are some marketplaces for some of the stuff available, and then we that effort needs to be going out there, right, where I am going out and looking. So okay, as procurement, I'm in procurement today. My goal as a procurement manager is reduce my costs and have my risk mitigation, right? Reduce sole sourcing, single sourcing, if you understand that, right? My third goal should be, which isn't today, is sourcing secondary materials. What percentage of my items that I'm sourcing today is actually getting sourced from secondary sources, right? It's not virgin raw material. That's a goal. And when that becomes a strategic goal, automatically you will take the effort to go out there, look for companies. Where's the waste coming out from? Who could I use actually as possible secondary source? And now suddenly you are working in that direction. There isn't one marketplace that has everything from textile to food to construction to raw materials to industrial. There isn't something like that exists today, but I do have a positive feeling that it will at some point. But there are some fragmented, focused marketplaces that we can go out and look for our raw materials
Yeah.
for.
I mean, typically, well, yes, of course, bringing the stuff in or finding stuff to sell on the way out. Typically, the supply chain or operations isn't linked to selling effort.
Isn't
Yeah.
so for procurement, supply chain is linked, right? Because you're bringing raw materials. For
Yeah.
selling, it's not, right? But that's the pretty much production. So production is part of supply chain, right? Because now you are producing and there is scrap. Now what do you do with your scrap? You either analyze your scrap and put it back on your shelf, or you do nothing and you throw it in trash. Now that's where a role comes in, where you actually analyze it and see who can find a secondary market for it,
Yeah.
find secondary customers for it.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Um, what um, what other sort of misconceptions or things or trends in supply chain that you notice?
So, I mean, misconceptions, huh? First of all, the first misconception was that I said, like, if you think logistics is supply chain, that's not true. Everything is supply chain. Everything around you has a supply chain running behind it to make it happen. If you are interested, go out there, look for it. Actually, if you buy um, packaged fruits or anything, if you look in the details, you will actually see the literally the passport of the product, how far the product has traveled and come to you. So that many regions are involved in actually making that product happen. So it's amazing. There are also some websites that actually gives you some idea. It's an open source website, but I don't remember the name right now, but I can find it for the viewers if they're interested. It gives you exactly where the product came from. And also, like, a lot of companies do life cycle analysis, right? So they also would know where things come from. But anyways, coming back to misconceptions, that's the first misconception. Supply chain is huge. Everything touches supply chain. I do want to talk about just in general, like the overall, like, recently my focus has been on in construction, right? And I'm just with a lot of anticipation, I have been watching this space of modular offsite construction, which is a better sustainable way of it's a perfect combination of construction and making it more sustainable. For the longest time, I mean, I actually have figures where construction has been like, our productivity in this industry has probably grown 1% or 3% maximum. Like, there was a McKinsey report, like, every year there's about $10 trillion of construction related spending, imagine. And that's equivalent to about 13% of overall GDP. I'm talking about the world economics. Now, that makes construction the largest sectors. And that also makes construction a biggest sector of attributing to the waste that we have been creating on our planet, right? And the carbon footprint that this sector has. Yet, there has been very minimal, like, poor improvement in productivity, more so because there has been lack of innovation, lack of people actually leading, like thought leaders in this industry. And that's why my interest in modular offsite construction is because it's a greener way to construction. We are getting there. There needs to be more regulations around it, and also more awareness on why it's better, why it's not only better for planet, not only for your sustainability goals, it's also better for your business. You get your ROI sooner. It's your lead time to build a building goes down immensely. The quality is improved because now you are actually manufacturing. So moving from project to product mentality is the way to go. And I just feel like it's not really a misconception. I just feel there's lack of awareness. And I would say, in a misconception standpoint, like, a lot of people, I mean, companies, organizations are not realizing the value that this mode of construction brings today. And we probably need more talks, more awareness, more articles and proof stating why it's popular and why it's going to add value to your business and also the planet overall.
Very nice. Um, is there I'm just trying to think, supply chain. What else is there? Is there anything I haven't asked you, but you wanted I mean, you already mentioned a few things, but is there anything I haven't asked you, but you wanted to particularly share?
I mean, I know that this podcast focuses a lot on entrepreneurial journey, right? And like I have been innovating all my life, and I just, like, if the listeners here to your podcast is really entrepreneurs, just I would just really like to highlight the importance of finding that product market fit, actually leaning on your network to make things happen. And a bigger misconception there is you need to invest a lot of marketing dollars to make things happen. You have to eventually, but when you are starting, and when you're starting a product, you really need to understand your target segment, niche on it to the extent you can. It's very, very hard to scale a broader product where you have multiple uh, uh, users, point of users. So niche down to the extent possible. And actually, there's absolutely nothing as overnight success. Uh,
Yeah.
it's not true. So these are just some of the myths that's been broken for me recently. And maybe you, Tats, with your like 2 decades of entrepreneurship, this is nothing new. But I'm just telling you, like, these might be said a lot, but these are so true, so true. Like, there's nothing called overnight success. It Every overnight success has a decade of sleepless nights that went behind that happening. And being frugal, starting with your customers and working backwards, is something that we really don't give enough credit for. Don't leave your customers on this journey. You might think that everybody is doing a good customer service. They are not. There are way too many products leaving customers behind, and do not focus on adoption of the product. So
Yeah,
these are some of the things that I have learned in the journey that I definitely wanted to leave, because especially because your podcast is focused on entrepreneurs.
sure. Now, something came to mind as you were doing it. My knowledge of supply chain is, it's very light. Although I did sit on a supply chain board, so I do know a little bit about it. But I know that one of the things that's not talked about a lot is the supply chain aspect of a business model can drive a business model. And I knew, like, one of the key ones back in the past was Dell's model. But my question is, are there any current companies that are using the supply chain as their competitive advantage, and how are they doing it?
And that's a great question. Um, I'll start with firstly, like, understanding, like, sharing that supply chain for the longest time was um, a cost center. Like, it was treated as a cost center, and that mentality is changing. It's not there yet, but it's changing, and it's talking now about it's becoming the profit center, right? Because now people are getting ahead of things and understanding why it's important and what it drives. Models, every I highly recommend. There are multiple models that's floating out there that you could pick up and utilize. The goal is to start somewhere, right? The most popular is the score model. Not sure if you heard of it. APIX, previously APIX, now ASCM, Association of Supply Chain Management. It's a nationally accredited institute for supply chain. Has the most recent score model released. uh, and it's pretty much about planning, sourcing, transforming, returning, like, how all of this orchestrates together. And the best part is, actually, circular supply chain network contributed to this core model. with adding the circularity aspect to it. So I'm pretty proud of being part of the organization that I am today. We literally contributed, one of our thought leaders contributed to it, because for the longest time they didn't have any concept of circularity, which is not great. And so now it does talk about circularity in some means and form. It has to evolve, but it's a good starting point. So you can literally go there if you know nothing and you really want to transform your supply chain. It doesn't matter what industry you are in. Go in, learn a little bit. It's a free resource. Go and read a little bit about it, and you could adapt it, but adapt it for your needs. You need to understand, not, I mean, the whole concept overall is valuable. How do you execute it is something that you can adapt. Not every business is complex, not every business is simple, right? And so make sure that you're adapting the data models, the overall concept, the processes around it. uh, and lean in on experts. There are a lot of supply chain experts, like me out there. Shameless plug, like me out there, who could actually help you understand, envision your current state, and actually help you navigate, see a path on what the future state would look like, with data on why, what your improvements would look like. So yes, but I highly recommend, tech is growing, and will be a catalyst in making supply chains efficient. But firstly and foremost, understand what's your current state process is, because if your processes are not strong, any tech will fail, always.
Got it.
But yeah, I mean, to talk about models, Score is a pretty popular model
Okay.
and accredited. Go check it out. Like, listeners, go check it out, and you could evolve it for your needs.
Awesome. And with what you are doing, I know you got a lot of expertise on the the Lean Six Sigma stuff. But how do you see the future for yourself? How are things evolving for you?
Yeah. So I So Lean Six Sigma just been part of what I've been working on, and then came the whole circular supply chain concept, and it really takes a lot of lean concepts and then expands and makes it more valuable. For me, my approach with my customers has always been, understand what your strategic goals are. Are you growing? Are you just trying to sustain? Are you, right now, you grew scrappily, in a scrappy way, but you're trying to now manage things and get a better hold of your bottom line? Whatever the goal is, I need to understand your goal and then where you're at. Once you get a good understanding, because a lot of times, I mean, it's so undervalued. A value stream map, or even a current state process map, is a big eye opener. Is a very big eye opener for any leader who's running a company. And in fact, I actually attempted to do a process map of my own day personally, and find out how much time I was just wasting, right? And not any, I mean, downtime is not wasting, but I'm just talking about, like, you could, like, many lean concepts are actually very applicable to your personal life too. So having a ground, having a uh, setting that benchmark and understanding where you're at is important, which I feel like it's still lacking in many traditional industries. I think some evolved industries at least know where they are at. They're making an effort. They know then there needs to be a change, um, but they also don't know how to navigate that change, right? Change
So
management.
you mapped out for your personal life using these concepts.
Yeah.
So you must have thought about where the places where the inefficiencies are happening.
Yes. The waste, the
Yeah,
burst,
where's the waste
the
in a day
burst.
to day, like where in general, where for people that are listening.
Oh yeah, for my, oh sure, yes. I mean, something that was very okay. I have two kids, two very young kids, right? And I am literally running. My mind is like constantly trying to multitask, although you can never multitask. I'm constantly multitasking. But something as simple as, there was a thing that I needed to use to make my kids breakfast that I used to walk multiple steps for. I literally redesigned my kitchen to bring it closer to my point of use. Something as simple as that. My travel, right? How often do I need to really go? How flexible can I be with my work operations? Like, simple things really saves you time, but you really need to take the effort to just stop, think about it. What are the things that I can actually cut down on? What are things that I critical path in my day, and I can't do, like, everything needs to work around it. Like my, kids pick up time or drop off time, and everything else needs to work around it. So that's my critical path. Like, that 2 hours is not going to go anywhere. So how do I see where other bursts are and improve it? Or how do I actually, crash my critical path? Can I outsource that? Can I, find school that's closer? Anything like simple things like that. But giving you an example, like it's
Yeah.
so basic, but thinking about it, trust me, do it. Take my word, map your day out. You will find one improvement opportunity. Unless
Yeah.
like you are a mastermind, supercomputer, whatever you call it, you will definitely find a space where you could actually minimize your waste and make your
Oh, I
time a
love
little
that.
more valuable.
Revisit it. What can you get rid of? How can you rearrange your environment? Is there
Yeah,
other things that you can introduce in your day to
introduce.
make it go smoother? New resources, new way of thinking about it. Wonderful.
Yeah. So I think that what I am seeing is there is more appetite for change, yet it's more at the executive level. I think the culture mindset shift has to trickle down to the level of the doers. That hasn't happened yet, and that's where I come in. Where thinking like having a go to market strategy is important. Go to market isn't just about your product, it's also about delivering your culture, delivering new processes, delivering a change. That's where I come in.